Hey, what's up, guys? This is, if you're just coming here for the first time, I want to thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate you. Like I said, I'm sure you guys all know that really 100% of success really starts with showing up. So thank you guys for showing up today. I want to 100% acknowledge you for that. So, first thing, I'm Victor Bell. If you don't know who I am, I got my claim to fame started from investing in a $10 book, and since then I've done actually $58 million worth of real estate because we got a deal under like that we're working on now, so that added to that number. But I wanted to share my journey with you guys, and then really, I mean, if I'm being 100% transparent, convince you to get on this journey with me. All right, so that's 100%. So a little backdrop on me. When I was younger, I left home when I was a kid at 12 years old, actually. Went with my dad. By the time I was 14, had a kid. I was not a troublemaker, but I was always in trouble because I'm a rebel. And then I had my kid, went through high school, got kicked out. I joined the Army, got out of the Army, which is really where my journey began because, like most people, they go to school, they go to college, they get out, they got told that their life was going to be a specific way, and then, like, reality hits them in the face, and then it ain't, right? So I didn't come from a rich family. My family was a middle-class family. They weren't handing Victor no checks when I got out of the Army. So anyways, I had to go figure it out. So once I started figuring things out, I got in trouble. I was on probation, and I read a book from the store. I wish I had that book, man. I'd show you guys. But it's no different from a book that I've read because that I wrote. But that book was really called Fast Cash with Real Estate by Ron LeGrand. If you want to look at it or check it out, it's a great book. But that book opened my mind. It really wasn't the stuff in there. It was opened my mind to what was possible for me at the time. Because again, like I said, I was trying to figure myself out. So fast forward a little bit from that book. The first year I did 24 properties. I did $1.2 million worth of real estate. And out of you guys listening to this, how many of you would like to start off with a book like mine's, $10, and later in your lifetime do $50 million worth of real estate, to do all these things that you set out to do that really put me on the path, honestly, to meet you guys today, right? So that's really my ETR. We call it an ETR, right? An earn the right story. But realistically, why I'm in front of you guys today, why I'm shooting this video today, is because I'm totally transparent. I want to help you guys make a lot of money so you can either change your financial goal, change your financial condition, become financially freed for you, your family, and, man, I want to do business with you. I want us to do business for a long time together. So I want to share my journey. Hopefully this helps you guys. And worst case scenario, man, do it or not. But do this. Invest in real estate. So I actually got some people here in the studio with me. So if you hear me talking to them, that's them. And I did that because it's better to talk to real people, man, instead of talking to a video, man. That's weird. So, but I'm getting through it. So I won't waste a lot of your time today, but what I will do is I'll go through some bullet points, and I want to convince you guys of the reason why investing in real estate, the way I do it is the way I do it. I can only speak from my experience, but why I think it's important, right? So first off, like I do with everybody, I talk about money. Why you have to get your money right. So when I was younger and I got this book, I didn't want to do real estate. I was trying to figure out my life financially because I wasn't taught about money. My parents learned what they learned about financial success. They're like, hey, we've all heard it. Money don't grow on trees. You got to work hard for your money. Save for a rainy day. A penny saved is a penny earned. All that's BS. A penny saved is a penny, no matter what somebody tells you. So that, as a matter of fact, it costs more to make a penny nowadays than it actually does for what they're worth. So that said, like, all of those financial programming and the money mindset that I had was not going to make me successful. Because prior to that, I didn't see anyone successful, not to the level that I wanted to be. Success to me was probably like for you guys, buy a house, work a job, retire when you're 65, and then you'll be free. But the reality of it is we all heard, and now we see it, depending on how old you are. If you're 65, when we heard that story, you ain't free. More people in this country are 65 that's still working because they have to supplement their income. That Social Security is not enough to cover because, how do you live off of a portion of what you couldn't live off of when you were working full time? And they're still doing it. That's a problem. So I want to convince you that your financial strength, your wealth just meaning the abundance of a thing, is more vital than anything else. Doesn't matter the vehicle, but I can tell you real estate for me has been that. So first thing I want to do, and I know I talk fast. I'm just going to say right now, man, I apologize in advance, but do me a favor, listen faster. That's the only way to make this work. So that said, I even printed off some stuff. Later it'll be in someplace, but I wanted to bring up a couple of charts that every time I see them, they blow my mind. I learned this really a few years ago, but I like graphs. I like stats because stats don't lie. So number one thing I wanted to kind of show was the household income all the way back from 1965, let's say 50 years ago, all the way up to this chart is 2020. I'll show it to you, all right, real fast. It's floppy. But this top broken line, which maybe you'll get a copy of it later. Hopefully you guys can see that. Ignore that line. Ignore it. Don't worry about that one. I just want you to pay attention to these bottom 5 lines. This line, this top percentile line that they have here, the top 5%, that's ultimately the top 5% of the middle class. These other 4 lines, these straight lines, have not changed in 50 years. That's people's household income boosted up to inflation. So that said, if you are down here, now we're not talking, this top of this bottom line here on this chart is $100,000 household income. So that this doesn't move. All lines in the universe reverse. Any straight line is guaranteed to go down if you don't do anything with it on any statistic. Just like a heart rate. If your heart rate is level at some point and it's a level line, I'm not talking about boom, boom like this. I'm talking about constantly going up. That's a healthy line. But if you see a line in the universe on a stat, on a chart, odds are it's going to go down if you don't do anything to it. So the people in our country that are in most danger are these 4 lines, which are the middle class, mind you, that has their income, their household income typically has not changed for 50 years. That should scare you. So if you make less than $100,000 a year in the United States, this is all the way up to 2020, so I'm not making it up. This is new. All the way down to 1965 has been tracked. And this is through recessions. You're in danger. Period, brother. You in danger, sister. Look, if you don't do anything about your income, if you don't take anything from this training, take that away. If you make less than $100,000, you cannot afford to live in prices and I was going to say inflammation like it's a joint, which technically it is. Inflation is constantly happening, and you can't do anything about it, all right? So the people who are not in danger are these people on this top line. That's the wealthy bracket. So realistically, if you really want to put the pin in it and just be like, man, Victor, what are you saying here? There's really only 2 income brackets. There's the wealthy, and then there's everyone else. Which one are you going to be? This one right here, this is a gradual thing, but they ain't quadruple. Like they're at 250. This is at 400. I'm telling you, you need to make at least $1 million a year for you to be successful, and you can do that in real estate. It's not. That's kind of typical. As a matter of fact, if you get into real estate, whether you're flipping houses, buying them the way that I say, you're investing in properties, if you don't have $1 million goal, man, don't do it. Keep your job. It's easier to keep your job than do this. But the point is, you're at risk if you're this bottom half, right? So this next chart I wanted to show you, and this is important. There's a reason why I'm showing you this chart first. The wealthy line, that broken line at the top, look at where they are, and everybody else is the bottom. That's the middle class. This chart right here is based on 3. This is the bottom. This line right here is the bottom 90% of the population, income-wise, right? This is a savings chart. This next line is the top 10% of the rest of the middle class, or the rest of the income side, that piece. Then the rest, this top line, that's the 1%. So what this is about savings. And if you guys have bought my book, I talk, you need more cash flow. I was like, you need to get to a place where you can put aside 40% of your income into savings, not to save it forever, like the rest of the planet tells you to do. We'll go through that later, but to invest that money. So this chart runs back from 1913 all the way up to 2012. It's a little old. I can't find a newer one, but this is no different because this is run in pretty extended period of time at the bottom to read graphs. If you want to learn how to read graphs, you can get Investor School. I'll teach you. But anyways, the point of this is this. The bottom 90% of society, they rarely ever save any more than 4% of their income. All right? The top middle tends to save around about 20 to 30%, but if you can take a look at that line in the middle, it kind of comes down quite a bit, right? Based on inflation. They can't save as much. These people can't save shit. I mean, nothing. So this line saves typically the wealthy, the top income wealthy in the United States, which honestly is not millionaires. They make $400,000 a year, roughly. That's the top 1%. All right. They're able to save 40% of their income. Now, the only time they weren't saving roughly, if you look at this stat, the only time they weren't saving roughly 40% of their income, you guys see this too? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is in 1930 to 39. You know why? The Great Depression happened. The Great Depression happened right here. They stopped saving. They took all their money out of the bank and they started buying assets, farms, properties, factories. They bought everything. And then in that relatively short amount of time, look, I think this is from 1939 to 1930, 10 years, they were back up to saving. Why? Because they bought assets. They bought real estate. They bought businesses. They bought up all the stocks of other companies. They had so much. And then all of a sudden, they went right back to saving. Why? Because they had income. They had cash flow coming in every month to continue on doing that. Now, you can't do that if you work all the time, which brings us to our next slide. Why am I showing you all this? Man, I got to beat you up a little bit. That's my point. I want to beat you up a little bit, make this hurt, make this sting, make you look at where you're at and go, okay, I got to fix it. Now, if I just beat you up and you just go into pure apathy and you roll over, you go, he's right, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, I totally get it. Just means you're not my person. It means you probably don't want to learn from somebody like me. But this one, and it got cut off, it's the U.S. household debt versus income chart. All right? So pay attention to this line. This is credit card debt per household growth. This actually went all the way through. It stopped. It got cut off, but it's actually through 2009. Right? But it's no different. It's still the same. The other charts are more confusing that I found related to this, but this is the same trajectory for all these lines. So if you take a look at this line, this is the debt. This is the credit card debt. All right, naturally, I can pull up one on mortgages, but we're not doing mortgages today. But it's a combination of those things. This is the medium household income growth line that's been tracked from 1980 all the way through to 2000. It's probably still the same. It hasn't went up much. It's pretty much stagnant. So here's the thing. This is the trick. I talk about this in my book called The Trap, The Middle Class Trap. You watch Wall Street, you watch everything else. They'll be like, yep, you know what? The household needs to pay off its credit card debts. It needs to pay off debt. It needs to pay off its car loans. It needs to pay off its other stuff. Dude, that is not what you need to be focused on. The only thing you need to focus on is how do I get this line up? This right here is like the magic trick. It's the light show. It's the fireworks. It's all that other stuff. But the reality of it is if you're going to be wealthy, do you think the wealthy are worried about them paying off their credit card debt? All of their focus goes towards raising this line up. Because if we took a look at this line, their line's constantly going up. That's an income line. That's not a paid off my debt line. You pay off your debt, you're not making any more money. You just paid off your debt. Nothing happened. Right? These people always get that same story. They listen to all their parents. Like I said, it's a mindset. Hey, pay off stuff. There's nothing wrong with paying off stuff. But when you pay off stuff, let your business pay it off. Let your real estate pay it off. Not with your working income. You save your working income. You invest in assets. And then you start building new income based on the assets you purchase. And all of a sudden, this line starts to move. You cannot move this line. This line is not always going to be there. You need debt. Good debt. Right? This is the focus. So I wanted to set the tone on what that looks like. So I know that was a lot. I threw up on you. But I wanted to share that with you because in this country, as a free country, free commerce, literally, my kids, Marquise, I'll tell this story and I'll move on. Marquise came up with this idea to sell some candy at school. This was when we were in Hawaii. We're in California right now. He was like, Dad, could you take me to Costco? Sure enough, brought him to Costco. We bought a box of candies for $18. He took all those candies to school and then sold each one of those candy bars for $5. I think there was it was a ridiculous amount of candy in there. So he came back. He was like, hey, and I told him, hey, I'll do it for you, buddy, but I'm your first investor. My first investment is buying the candy. I can't remember exactly how much it was. It was like $13, right? Is that what I said? Roughly. I think the candy box was $13. Okay, good. Yeah. He made a good bit of money off of those. There's a ton of them. So when he comes back, he goes like, hey, Dad, could you take me back to the store? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, so what about my $13? And he was like, oh, yeah. I was like, so I'm an investor. You either give me my $13 back or I want a percentage of the next things you sell. And he was like, all right. I said, you can keep re-upping my money, man, how you want to do it. I was like, so the first $13, you're going to pay me that back. I don't want it back. I just want 10% of your next sales because I need to make money. Now I'm turning into capitalist dad. But, right? But my son understood it. The essence of all business is not to help people, is not to be your friend, is not to save the world from hunger. The essence of all business is to make money. That is it. It's an exchange of commerce, right? The definition of business is to the act or being in the action of exchange with another human being for the purposes of commerce. That's business. If you don't make money in your business, that's a charity. That's different. That's a nonprofit organization. But don't call it a business if you're not doing that for that purpose. And why are we doing this? Very simply, my friends, to get here, right? So realistically, really, all I really want to do is convince you first that there's a problem economically and to make wealth your duty. If you want to get out of the lower level of the middle class, nothing wrong with being a middle class person. We're all middle class. Everyone starts there, right? But the reality of it is that's the area that's most danger. Their lines don't move, right? You are now responsible for your move because our parents didn't know what we know. My mom couldn't go out and generate more revenue than what she could. My dad, even though he's a good dude, he can work his butt off, he wasn't able to go generate more money. Not because he wasn't capable, because he didn't have the knowledge. You and I can do better, and when we know better, we do better, right? So that's why I wanted to do this. First, I wanted to beat you up a little bit. I want to give you some stats. The stats don't lie. You can look these up online yourself. One from Advisor Perspectives. The other one is this Rate Savings by the Wealth. You can find that online as well. You can Google it by Emmanuel Saez and Gabriel Zuckman, which was a distribution from the U.S. Wealth Capital, and I can't read the rest of it. I got cut off. The other one was from the Business Insider, right? And that source, this source for the debt and the income, actually came from the Federal Reserve and the Census Bureau. So it's not Victor making it up, man, making charts on my freaking Apple computer. This is stuff that I find online. This is the stats. So you can be a statistic on the downside, or you can be a statistic on the upside. So our goal is what? To get you to the wealthy bracket. That's my target for you. Cool? So that said, we're going to jump into how we're going to do that and how I've done it. And I want to be upfront with you guys. I only share with you from my experience. And my experience and the experience of probably thousands and hundreds of thousands of other people like me, I can only come from my experience. So if there's something I don't know, I will honestly tell you, man, I don't know. Google it, talk to somebody else who did, or I can find out the information for you. So feel free to ask questions at that time. Do you guys have any questions before I move on to the next thing? All right, did that about right?
Yeah.
Cool. So, and Uganda, whenever we talk or whenever I talk to anybody that wants to work with me or for me with my real estate stuff, I'd be like, man, how much money do you want to make? Reason why is because if you only say, I got to make like 50 grand, like because I Googled it online and that's what Google says, it's like, well, you're going to be broke and then you're going to have a money problem and then you're going to make your money problem, my money problem. You're going to not show up for work. You're going to quit. It's not enough to live off of. People can't live off of that. And I'm hipping on this because this is so important to me, guys. Like just to share. Right. Like 100,000 is not enough to live off of now. 80,000 when this mattered, like in the 90s, maybe you were crushing it. But the time value of money, inflation, and the inflationary rates and the way things are happening right now, the amount of money pumped into the marketplace, $9 trillion of new money is in our economy right now that didn't exist last year. Just that alone. You'd wonder why prices are going up. They're not going up. The cost of things are going up because inflationary rates have to be adjusted to keep up with the amount of money while money is being devalued because so much crap is in the market right now. So how do you combat that? With real assets. Get your money out of the bank and put them into a real asset that pays you every month. That actually is what's called in the industry, what's called in the economics, a utility. It's housing. It's different. Real estate itself as an asset is real estate, but you aren't doing that. Your money in the bank can buy cash flow coming from rents, which is a utility. So we'll go over how I did that and how you're going to get to this $1 million valuation of either your income and naturally if you're going to do your net worth thing. I assume, this is my target, you need to be at a $10 million net worth, period. Bam, or nobody's going to take you serious. Right? Like you do loans, right? When you get something float across your desk and this guy wants to do it and his net worth, his assets total 10 mil, you're like, oh, I can do it. Right? You don't question, but if you have $1 million, you have $1 million net worth or $1 million in the bank, the day you spend $1, you ain't a millionaire no more. Nobody wants to say that, but that's what's up. That's why cash flow matters, right? So as I move into the next thing, I'm going to go over how I did this because that's probably why you want to listen to anything that I say. It's not about what I feel. This is about what I did, and then you can decipher whether you want to work with me long term or you can go do this yourself, man, which is what I implore anyone to do, all right? So first things first, I go over this, and I think this is valuable. When I started with that book, I learned how to do real estate, but there's different ways you can do it. My personal weapon of choice, right, is pretty houses. If I'm going to do residential, I like multifamily apartments, and I like pretty houses. And there's a reason why I like that. Even with multifamily, I like pretty properties. I don't like beat-up, fixer-upper properties. So when I learned this business, I didn't have any money or credit. And I learned from my mentors, if you don't have money or credit, then don't promise people you're going to use your money and credit. You have to use your assets and use what you have. Now, you don't have to always do that. You're not going to stay in that space, but you need to know there. So I'm coming from that experience of why I got into pretty houses. So if you're a wholesaler, you're a flipper, you do duplexes and fourplexes, man, more power to you. I love that. But I'm going to tell you, that is not the way to make money in this game. It's transactional. Yeah, you can still be in this lower level bracket, and you can make $3, $4, $5, $10,000 a deal wholesaling and assigning contracts to people, which is really what wholesaling is, flipping. You flip your contract. You're not really a real estate guy. You're just flipping paper. Or you can go and you can take down a property with your own credit and a bunch of partners and fix it up and risk money, which is a challenge right now. Depending on when you're watching this, you're going to see like the market's changing. People bought properties to sell them and they can't. There's no buyers because the buyers are getting priced out. And if you're sitting there holding on that deal and you got a 12-month term on the loan and it's coming due and you can't refinance your way out of a paper bag, you're going to lose it. So, and guys like all the hard money lending guys I know, man, they don't want to be in the service. They don't want to be in the loan servicing business. That's a whole nother business, right? So that said, Pretty Houses afforded me the opportunity to do that. So when I got in, I'll just go over my first Pretty House deal. My first Pretty House deal, I was explaining it to somebody today that I put out a bunch of signs. I was at a seminar, and my mentor, his name is Will DeKett, actually was, I told him, I was like, hey, I got this deal. And he was like, what's the numbers on it? I was like, man, I think there's $100,000 in there. And he was like, yeah, man, go get it. So and he showed me what to do. I'll go through all that stuff later. But he was like, hey, say it this way. Tell them you're going to take it over. Tell them you're going to turn around and resell it. Tell them you'll pay them later. There was no money they needed. It was just a deal for me, right? That deal. So before that, I did 24 properties. I was already in the game, but I was struggling. I was managing properties. I didn't know what I was doing. I have one fixer-upper property in this package of 24. That was a total shit show. Like, it was bad. And I knew I didn't want to do fixer-uppers. I knew that because I'm not a hammer guy. I'm not a yard guy. None of that stuff. So I didn't like the experience I already had. And then I had all these multifamilies that were small that when somebody moved out, the cash flow was gone. Now it was up to Victor to figure this out. So I was still hustling on the side to pay somebody else's rent. Now people say, you don't want to buy your own house because you're paying somebody else's rent. First, you need a place to live. You're always going to pay for where you live, whether it's your place or somebody else's place. Second, if you get a duplex or a fourplex, one of your tenants move out, you're paying their place. You're going to pay where you live, and you're going to pay them. I promise you, that's just the game. No one wants to say it, but I want to tell you my experience first, and I'm also going to tell you the truth. Why? I don't want you out of these brackets. It doesn't make sense to stay there if you don't have to. The only way out is to know, right? So once I got through all that stuff, working, and Bill was like, dude, you need to do this. I turned around. We got that property. I took it over the way he said. He sent me over the documents I still use the documents today. And all of a sudden, that deal changed everything for me. So I had a partner, split it with him 50-50. I got 50, he got 50. Ooh, that's right around like 48. Dude, I was like, I'll never do that other shit again. I'll never get a beat-up fixer-upper. So all I got to do is wash, rinse, repeat. Someone who wants to sell, somebody who's willing to let me take it over and do what I do anyways, make an honest assessment of what I'm capable of. And then I go and I keep my word to that person and I get paid and they're happy, I'm happy. They're never really happy, but whatever, right? It's business. Like, I can do that. I can do that because it keeps me honest. I'm in my own integrity about that. I'm in my own ethics about what I'm capable of and willing to do. And it stretched me. And I'm going to say this too. This isn't something that everybody else teaches because I'm not a seminar guy. I'm actually a guy that does this business who actually is committed to helping people. The properties that I go after actually are a definition of who I am as a human being. I don't like ugly stuff. I don't like ugly clothes. I don't like ugly furniture. I don't want to be in a place that when I drive by it, I'm embarrassed. I don't want that for myself. I don't want it for my kids. I'm getting emotional saying that. That's how serious this is for me. So like when I do stuff, it's an extension of me. So I don't want you guys to get into this real estate and it's a business, it's money, it's money, it's money. You can make blood money in anything. I can always sell something I don't believe in. I don't want to do that to myself because it tears a little bit of me away. So when I talk about pretty houses, that's a name of a thing. But really when I look at something like, dude, I want to be proud of it. I want to show my mom. I want to show my kids. When I die, I want the people who invested with me go, hey, you know what? Vic did right by us. That means something to me. So if that don't mean something for you, I get it. Like I said in the beginning, just my experience, man. Do what you want. But I don't have to sacrifice either to get out of this bracket, right? Because I'll be honest, man, I'm up here. I always have been. Even when I'm not up there, I'm up there, all right? So that said, I got into the pretty house business. That changed everything for me. And it also made me go back and take a look at my multifamily deals that I did. I didn't know what I was doing. So as I'm going through this line in the sand with you to say, okay, how did Victor do this? First, I got my head right about money. I knew this was wrong, right? My mom wasn't successful. They were all down here. I was like, all right, that ain't what I want to do. I'm watching them struggle, get divorced and stuff like that. All my friends' families getting divorced and leaving. I didn't want that. So I knew the money thing was what I needed when I got out of the Army. The dream was a nightmare. Then I got into the real estate. That dream of the book was getting a deal. Fine, fast cash of real estate. I understood the fast cash part. But what I did was I went to go find a property, and then I was in there long term with a partner. Fast cash doesn't continue to happen unless you have what? Cash flow, right? So my multifamilies, they did have cash flow for the people who stayed. There was a learning curve, but that's how I was like, all right, first we did $1.2 million that first year in that package of deals. Then I started wholesaling deals. I started finding those ugly properties. They were hard to get rid of. I had to convince people, let me get a 30-day contract, and then put the noose on my neck and then dangle as long as I can before the contract expires and hope that I make freaking $3,000 or $2,000 or $1,000, whatever it took to pay my bills. And there were sometimes those contracts expired, and then those people hated me because I had to go back and say, dude, I couldn't get it done. I'm sorry. And they're like, we were dependent on that, Victor. That hurts. It wasn't the money. Because like every one of those deals that didn't pan out for me, man, it beat my confidence up, and I had to come home every day to my apartment and be like, I can't pay bills, and they needed that money to do shit too. That matters. So, again, I like to tell people from the heart where I'm at. So you can work with me or not, but just know who you're dealing with up front. You want to learn everything you can about people that you want to work with, mentor with, invest with. Super important. Even not invest in deals, invest in my information. This is real. So as I got into the multifamily stuff, though, my properties that did well in that portfolio, and I got properties I could fix and assign, so I had a little bit of money, and then I would find somebody who had a multifamily deal because they were properties next door to the ones I had. I was like, hey, what if I gave you some money and let me take over your property, manage it? I'm managing mine next door. I can manage yours. You don't want to deal with this. And they took it. And then I was like, oh, well, shit, I can just give somebody a little bit of money for their property and take over managing it. And I was like, what if I just, when I figure out how to get the money out of it, I just split the profit with you. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I started doing that. But they were nicer properties. And they were nicer than mine because the properties I got from the people that gave me the portfolio, that was their junk properties. So I had to go in, oversee people fixing them. So all of a sudden, I'm like, all right, that one's nice. The one I got's jacked up. I'm just going to make it look like theirs, and I can get the same rents. I started putting things together. Initially when you get started, if you're in this business, it's a business. But when you're started, you don't know anything. You're just kind of feeling your way out. So you got to look for the consistencies. So that put me on this path of looking for multifamilies. I knew when I got my other multifamily packages, when things went wrong, they hurt. And then I knew what it looked like for the deals that I was taking over from other people that I was kind of partnering with them. Those didn't hurt so bad. I was like, dude, this is good. That one's not causing me any problems. This is causing me a headache. What do I do? So I started replicating that activity. And lo and behold, I moved. I left Texas. I sold everything that we had. I got married to my wife, Sharon, who's my lovely wife who I chased like a dog for a year. And and so I went to Hawaii. So that disrupted my pattern. And I'm going somewhere with why this is important. This is a very important transition into my career. And it's going to be for you too. At some point, you're going to have to make a decision that everything that got you to where you are today cannot get you to where you're going in the future. You got to make that path. So I'm a person that I'm not married to where I went. I'm not. If I have something great today, man, something changes my mind, or I'm like a dog about, what's that smell? And then I run off to go do something. I'm cool with letting go of everything that got me there because I know I'm confident enough to know that I can start from zero and I can get to millions of dollars in a day. Boom. It's just a mindset. You've heard that saying, if you take a millionaire and get him to zero, he'll have it all back in a couple of years. Dude, that's me. I'm not even proud of it either. Like, I shouldn't go to zero ever. I won't go to zero again, but I know how to do it. So I said that to say when I got to Hawaii with this mindset, okay, know what I know, because I used to live in Hawaii before when I was in the Army and I went back to Texas. I was like, know what I know, I'll do it different. So I got there, and like I talked about my buddy Bill DeCat, when we're going back, I'm dancing between pretty houses and pretty apartments, all right? So super important for you to get it. The pretty house business, I understood it, but I didn't know what I was doing. I had no formal training. Okay, I was just flying by the seat of my pants. I knew what deals worked. I knew what deals didn't. I stopped doing the fixer-uppers, and I only took over properties. Then I did multifamilies, and I started going after nicer deals. Got to Hawaii, and I had to call Bill, and I was like, Bill, I'm married now. My wife is like hardcore about me needing to hustle and make some money because I didn't have an income, right? Because I haven't had a job since chart 96, 97, somewhere in there. Still. So I did like side jobs, but they were sales jobs, not on anybody's actually paid period. It was more just like if you work, you eat. So, but anyways, I called him and I was like, hey man, how do I do this? And he asked me what I had been doing. I told him what I've been saying, and he's like, dude, you're doing that all wrong. The way I taught you, I didn't have a course then. I just told you what to do. He's like, so now do this. So here's was the thing. I found a deal, and his thing was, I'll send you my course. It's $3,000. It was literally a bunch of CDs and a manual. It was a manual like this, just like that. Some pages in it, and it's literally some CDs that I listen to in my car, like on repeat, which is why I can say what I say so easily. So I found a deal. That first deal was a nightmare, right? Because it still wasn't as pretty as I needed it to be, but I needed to eat. So I got the deal, same thing, subject to stuff, which I'm going somewhere with. You got to get a deal that's right. Good? No? Okay. So I got that deal, and I held on to that deal. Then my breakthrough came. Now, this is after I got the course. I'm going to show you how fast things work. I got the course. I found the property. I took the property over. Nightmare. I was bleeding money every month because I made promises to make payments on this property. And all of a sudden now, where those payments come from? They came from my wife Sharon's income because I didn't have one. Oh, let's say that again. But so she was not happy because she's not a business person at the time. She was in the military. She was an officer in the military. She was in the process of getting out. So then I learned what to do the right way because he documented it. The paperwork was there. I listened. I did exactly what he said. If you ever want to reach out to him and be like, man, how many times did Vic call you a day? He's going to say 20. Vic called me in the middle of the night because of the time differences. And he's like, man, I got this going on. What do I do? And he would be like, do this and hang up. And his thing was never question what I'm telling you to do. Just do it and don't ask. That was hard for me because I asked a lot of questions, right? Because I want to do it right. But I listened, right? So you listen to the person telling you what to do. So that next deal, I made $70,000 and I sold the property. I probably should have kept it. I took over a property, really nice. Exactly how I did the first one, but it wasn't the right deal. It wasn't a pretty house. Even it was nice. It was across from the beach, but it had headaches. And then I took over one, no headaches, not on the beach. It was a condo. I sold it for $70,000. I think I made that in like 45 days. It changed the game for me. Just like the other one, the $100,000 changed the game. So all of a sudden it was like, boom, I made $70,000, hit my bank account. I was like, okay, what do I do? Then the game started for me. I was sold on, okay, I ain't doing any more ugly, beat up, shitty properties. I don't care where they're at. It has to have these things. Nice properties, and you guys hear me say this all the time, right? There's three problems in a property: a people problem, a financial problem, or a property problem. If it has all three, walk away in the pretty house business. Pretty apartments too. Right? I'll go through my ugly apartment complex problem, and I'm going to verify and share with you this. But if it has a people problem, I can fix your people problem. You may have people in there you want out. I can take care of that. If the house is pretty and there's no financial problems. If there's a people problem and a financial problem, let's say it's pre-foreclosure and you need to go quickly, I can take care of those as long as the house is nice. But if the house is not nice and you have a people problem, and you have a property problem. If you have a people problem and a financial problem, I go, look, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Reason why is because we operate off of a stable principle in my office, in my household, and how I think. There's no shortages of deals on the planet. If I wait long enough, I will find one. Because my business is predicated on putting a noose around my neck and hanging longer than the other person. Because I know when I get a deal, it's going to take care of me forever. Because what did my first deal make me? $50,000. In this bottom bracket across the board, all the way up to 2020. Right now, we're in 22, but it's not far away. With the top percent, I was already still in this lower bracket, but I made from one deal what people make all year working. Then when I made my second deal, I was already at the top bracket of that. Third deal, I was already in this line, the middle. I was in the upper middle class, leaving there. My fourth deal of the year had already put me up. It was like $400,000 on the average. I made $300,000 to $500,000 doing just pretty houses, non-apartment buildings. That's not a lot. I mean, if you do 4 deals a year, $50,000, man, you're already at the top. You're already entering the wealth bracket. And I do it with nice houses with no major renovations, right? I'll go through what that is. I go through what that is in my pretty house course. Pretty houses basically are properties you can get into that their renovations or upgrades are no more than roughly about $20,000. If I'm start pushing $30,000 for renovation, I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. This is starting to look ugly. Let's pull out, right? So any one of my investors, they know Victor starts to become a cheapskate once I push past overspending for renovations. So my job is to protect my partner's money at all costs. So that said, though, it's a game changer when you understand this business. Now, there's a specific way to do this business because this is how the wealthy. You're on my email list, you get it. This is how the wealthy has been trading assets. The wealthy don't buy beat up fixer-uppers in the middle of nowhere in D-class neighborhoods and Section 8 areas. They don't do that. If you go online right now, if you go to the Real Deal publication, you look at who's buying properties, then they're saying, hey, such and such just flipped a property in Bel Air. Such and such just flipped an oceanfront estate. Such and such just picked up an estate in the Hamptons. That's what they're buying. And you know how they're buying it? With the pretty house strategy that we use, which ultimately we use trust to transfer properties into. Been done for centuries. And that's how it is. They protect their assets. They're hedged from taxes, which is real. When you're looking at investing, these are things. Protection of not losing capital. Valuable assets that do not go down in value based on market conditions. It's based on supply and demand. Next, you can save taxes and not get hammered by the IRS because we're doing their jobs, right? By being business owners and entrepreneurs in the world, actually providing services and housing and revenue for people to get jobs and work. So it passes the sniff test. It makes me money. I'm not going to get hammered and lose all of it. I don't have to be at risk for getting problems and stuff. And the laws are actually set up to allow me to do what I'm doing the right way. And oh, by the way, if something goes sideways, it goes to my family and it doesn't get seized by the city and the governments and all those other people who are just using our money to fix the streets, but not really fix the streets. So that's the thing, right? So that was a huge lesson for me. I was like, oh man, this is how this is done. So when I got to Hawaii, I had an ample opportunity to do that. That's why I love California. People say don't, but here I am because I love the beach. So that said, moving into this piece, when I understood that this was a better avenue of approach, that 70 grand changed the game. I took over a nice real estate deal. I turned around and I sold it. I made that money to take care of my family. I paid my taxes and move on to the next deal. I'm a guy that pays his taxes. I'm cool with it because I don't want to be disruptive when I have to. That said, it moved me into the next bracket. I'm like, okay, I know the multifamily game. Hawaii was really expensive. Boom. This is a myth. Don't buy off price. Buy off the property. If it's a good enough property, just like my 72 deals, or which is what they're called, pretty house business and all that other stuff, I don't buy based on price. I'll take your property off your hands because I love it. I'm like, dude, this is a nice place, man. I love it. Like that, we have a saying too. If I got to talk my wife off the ledge for wanting to move in it, that's the one, right? So when I looked at that from that perspective, I was like, okay, well, multifamily properties have been playing this game forever, right? The wealthy's always bought assets in some entity, whether it's a trust, whether it's an LLC, whether it's a corporation, it doesn't matter. They've always shielded their assets from either taxes and or shielded themselves to be able to build a bigger business. That's how it's done. So in multifamily, I was like, okay, so why don't we do that? So I'm going to hammer some of you little guys that like to do these beat-up, fixer-up with multifamilies in the middle of nowhere in Macon, Georgia, and like, I don't even know, like all the back country places you really like to go to. It's nice, sounds good because you can get it for pennies on the dollar, but a penny's a penny, all right? So that said, I did the same thing, man. I bought it. I was in a high-price market. And everyone was like, oh, do this multifamily. So first, I bought a multifamily property. I bought a building I lived in. It's crazy, right? So before I left Texas, I moved to Hawaii. When I learned how to do multifamily the right way, run the numbers, screen the deals, and talk to the owners, and structure what I've already been doing just in a bigger way, I actually called the guy that owned the property I used to live in and negotiated a deal with him. A no money down purchase on an apartment building that was actually cash flowing. And I had that deal for a couple of years. Blew my mind that was even possible. Right? Because it was a nice property. Like I said, I lived there. It wasn't the best location because I couldn't afford a lot, but it was probably with a better property in that area. So I knew what I had to do, but then I started listening to all these other people because the market was going crazy. Yeah, we should buy these fixer-uppers. Actually, at the time, they don't call it that anymore, but they're called reposition deals. Now they changed the name to value add, right? But at some point, reposition deals were all the fad, right? And reposition deals really are for big companies. I think we were just talking about is the company buying a bigger piece of thing. They know how much they're going to spend. Now, they were going in and going to change the name which is what people do in a reposition. They change the name of the property. They start changing the tenant base, all that stuff, getting a little hierarchy. But that's the same way as buying a beat-up fixer-upper house and saying, hey, we're going to paint it. We're going to do this. We're going to change the mailbox. We're going to make it look nice. That's what's happening. So in the multifamily space, I bought that dogma. Buy a property for cheap. Look for properties that are only 30% occupied, that are vacant apartment buildings, and go negotiate with the owner, take it over, and fill it up. Well, let me tell you, man, that's a lot of work. And if you're going to do it, most of the time that is not going to be in your area, in your neighborhood, depending on where you live. You live in California, there's no beat-up fixer-uppers that are boarded up and vacant. There's a housing shortage. Those get fixed, or they get demolished and somebody comes in, buys it, and fixes it up at some point. So depending on where you're at, a lot of people in high-priced markets tend to go to lower-priced markets because they think they're getting more bang for their buck. But what they're really getting is banged, period, because I got banged. All right, so that said, I went to Cincinnati like the rest of the building. I'm going to go to Cincinnati, man. I'm going to steal stuff from Cincinnati. So I did it. I found a deal, 40-unit deal. I took it over from an owner from California who's getting hammered. Somebody who does teeth, thinks she's a doctor, a dentist. I always beat up on people who are dentists, right? Like, if you do teeth, man, people trying to take your head off in the market. It's not even fair. But anyway, buy my book if you do teeth, man. I'm trying to help you. But anyways, I got that property, and it was 50% occupied, all 3 bedrooms. This thing was a monster. I took it over from another wholesaler. I was like, oh, man, it's a great deal. I had another mentor at the time. His name is Scott Shield. He actually teaches this. If you want to go to his stuff, it's called the Commercial Academy. He primarily does retail property. He buys these big shopping centers. We're friends. He was like, Vic, don't do this deal. I was like, what? I'm standing out in the parking lot on my cell phone like, nah, dude, I'm about to do this deal. I'm about to win. Right? So I flew down there for that. These guys wanted 30 grand, boom. And then I talked to the owner because I'm legitimate. I'm stringent on talking to the owner. I don't like people to negotiate for me. So I talked to the owner. She was willing to do a land contract. If you guys don't know what a land contract is, it's basically an agreement of sale saying if you do this, I'll sell it to you. These are the payments, right? I'm just simplifying it. I got that property for like, I don't know, for what she paid on it, which is similar to the way we do our pretty houses stuff. I took it over what she owed on it. I started making the payments. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to fix this property up. I knew the property was worth $1.2 million. I was in it for around, let's just say 380, but really let's say 400. So it's not hard, man. It's 30 units. All 3 bedrooms, which was a freaking problem. 3-bedroom, 1 bath in like Cincinnati, not in the greatest neighborhood. So what that means is you have a very high traffic unit with no jobs where they were in the hood. So that said, though, not all places in Cincinnati are the hood. There's some really nice places. I want to be clear on that. But this property for me, it went from like 50% occupied to 20%. Because we started kicking people out. We started renovating units. I got a management company, a project management company. But when I was in Hawaii, flying back and forth, trying to check on this thing, you can't be there every day, right? That's why I tell everybody, buy in your own backyard. So that was 1 lesson. 2, don't buy beat-up fixer-uppers. So I was going there. They were fixing stuff up. We started the lease-up process. We went from 50 to 20% occupied. Now we went from 20% occupied to like 25. We started getting people in because we're fixing stuff. I had money in escrow that they were just stroking checks out of. I was like, yeah, call me first for the draws. And then later I was like, don't worry about it. You just do it. And all of a sudden my money was gone. I was like, dude, there was like 400 grand in that account. What happened? That's what happened. Stroking checks, man, not paying attention to your money. That's why this chart, I went over this chart first. Pay attention to your finances. Where are you on this chart? I didn't know where I was in the pecking order of this thing. You know how I found out? A broker called me. He was like, hey, Vic, I don't know if you know this, but we came by a property. We were looking at properties owned or managed by this company, and there's an issue. And I know you bought that property down the street. How's things going? And I was like, oh, my stuff's fine. Then all of a sudden I started making phone calls, and I found out it wasn't. The tenants were letting me know. So that said, that was my lesson with the reposition deal. That property actually caused me to file for bankruptcy to protect myself. That was crazy. And I knew what I was doing. But here was the net of that. It was an ugly building. I knew not to do it. Everyone else told me not to do it. I was chasing what? The money. I was listening to what everybody said. Buy a beat-up fixer-upper that you can turn around. Like, that's easy. And also go fly in the middle of nowhere to get it because you don't have the balls or the ovaries, to buy your own backyard and just pay the premium so you can actually keep your eyes on your money. Because if you'll pay a premium, somebody will always pay a premium for it from you because it's a premium product. It's just what it is, right? We're talking about cars. How much money would you pay for a Lamborghini? $300.
Whatever.
Right. You could pay $300 and you go, Vic, I don't want it anymore. How much you want for it, man? $300. I'm like, bet. I'm not gonna argue with you on price. Right. Because it's a premium product. Like there's limited, which is why I said pretty properties will always come at a premium because you're dealing with supply and demand. That's how it works. You expect to pay more money for it. So that said, that was my lesson again, and I'm kind of streaming down why I go through pretty houses, why this is important. How do I go from a $10 book, knowing nothing, getting into properties and then beating my head against a stone and say, okay, Vic, so you made money here. What was your tipping point? So the tipping point on this one was I had to file for bankruptcy for that property. I lost that property. I had to give it back to the lady. She didn't want it back. She was like, I don't want it back. There was a class action lawsuit against the people who robbed from me. They were sticklers. They filed for bankruptcy. I guess the rest of the world went after them. I didn't have time. I was like, I just want to get back to work. Like I said in the beginning, I'm one of those people, I just want to stay busy. I can be destructive when I'm not working, so I just try to stay busy. That was the moment I made a decision. I will never let that happen again. I won't listen and do things that other people are doing in the moment because the market, just so you guys know, the market is just a group agreement. People in the market made an agreement that this is what they want to do. They all went to go do it. And if everyone does the same thing, then know that that little group is an inflated group. Right? That's how it works. So like, because I followed that inflated group over to do something that was actually not me, I know that wasn't going to work. I was just chasing the dollars. I went away from what my core product was, which nice properties that identify with myself. I can work with people who have some sense, who they make money, they understand the value of money, they understand the value of what I'm bringing to the table, and they're either going to partner with me or they're going to give up their property because they got something else happening, and they know that this deal will make money, they'll be fine. That's my core business, whatever you want to call it, right? My ethics. Fast forward, I go through bankruptcy, I do all this stuff. I'm going somewhere with this of how I went here, how I got to this $58 million. Now, I was already past doing multi-million dollars worth of deals. I wasn't hurting until the bankruptcy thing happened. I went to zero. Like I said, I went to zero a few times. So I go to zero, I get kicked out of bankruptcy, I go through bankruptcy for a year. 90 days later, I bought a $3.6 million property. Right after that, same owner, I ended up picking up $1 million property that, I got it for $1 million. It was worth $1.5 million. And then right after I bought it for 1.2, appraised for 1.7 in my own backyard. Nice properties, great locations. All I had to do was manage them, right? And I managed the manager. What was the difference? First, I gave up the myth that there's better stuff someplace else. I gave up on it. Really, I didn't give up on it. I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I couldn't just go someplace else, right? I had to start from zero. When you're at zero, which is the best place you need to be, you have to let go of all this other shit that you hold on to, that people teach you. Oh, look at this thing, and all these fads. When you're broke, you can't do that. You're like, dude, I got to make money right here. I don't have plane money to fly across the world to make sure you're doing what you need to do. I got to take care of my wife and my kids. So at some point, that was a game changer for me. And here's was really the thing. I drop all these names. This guy's name is Ken Lee, great guy. He's a great friend of mine. MMA guys, kids are great. Christian and Angela Lee's dad, and they got some younger kids that are in the fight scene right now too. That with one championship, they're the belt holders. Or Angela is. He was like, Vic. I told him, I was like, dude, I need to get a deal. He was a commercial broker. He owned a few properties at the time. And he was like, I got a deal for you. But the thing that you're doing, the way you learn how to do it from all these other people running around doing stuff, he said, that's not going to work. He's like, you're doing it wrong. And I was like, okay, all right. Like I said in the beginning, if you tell me what to do, I just want to do it, right? And if you start telling me what to do, I'm not going to ask you a bunch of questions. If you say don't ask questions, you're going to be like, hey, do this. And I was like, all right, what do I do? He's like, here's the deal. I got a deal, and I'm going to share this story with you because I'm going somewhere with this, and I'm going to lead into our next piece about the pretty stuff. He's like, I got a deal. It's my property. I'm renovating it now. I need X amount of dollars, which at the time was like, it was $300. He was like, do you have $300? $300 grand. And I was like, yeah. I did not have $300 grand. I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, or can you get it? I was like, yeah, I can get it. He's like, okay, cool. I will give you an opportunity. You got 90 days to put the money together. I need to get this done by 90 days. Got it. So that was my marching orders. That's kind of how my whole life has been around. Somebody gives me an opportunity based on what I say that I need, that what they have access to, and they say yes, right? Hey, what if I take over your property? Let me manage it. Would you do it? Same thing. So then the next day, I'm like, okay, cool. I got 90 days, and I'm calling and doing stuff. He calls and he goes, hey, Vic, you know what? Something changed on my side. I need that money in 30 days. He's like, so yeah, just let me know. And I was like, okay. And I can tell you guys, man, I've never worked so hard in my life. Ever. That was the time where I was like, I talk about the shot group getting tighter when you go to zero and you don't have time to listen to stupidity. It got even tighter. It was like, not only am I at zero, I'm at negative 300 grand. And I don't have it. When you go to negative, that's pucker factor, dude. You like, like tight. So it's important for you to know the difference. So I called everyone I knew. If you looked at me in the grocery store, man, I talked to you about it. I was like, I got to get this done. So anyways, long story short, I met my partner. My partner put up he was like, okay, cool. I showed him the deal. But here was the difference of that. This is why I say you stick with the nice stuff. He saw the deal and he was like, okay, I love it. I didn't have to sell him on the deal. It was right across from the beach. It was 17 units. It was gated, palm treed up, beautiful. Like all we were doing was going in and raising the rents. And I was committed to do that. I was like, look, we just need this. We're getting a $3.6 million property for like 2.6 mil, 2.9. It was worth 3.6. We're putting down a down payment. He's going to carry the debt. All we got to do, he's going to give us 24 months to pay him off. That's it. Actually, it was 12 months. And I negotiated another 12 months. So it was 24 months total. He was like, fine, let's do it. Then all of a sudden it was like, oh, man, that was easy. I didn't even think I could get a deal like that here. I went from zero within 90 days of being in bankruptcy to all of a sudden having a $3.6 million property, raised the money, found a partner. Why? Because I stopped chasing the rabbit. I stopped listening to all the stories of all the people that are really operating down here trying to tell me how to do what I know lives in this space. I got really clear. And then once I had that success, my confidence shot up and he was like, hey, I got another property, Vic. Here's what I need. I need 250 now. And I was like, all right. So I went back to my partner. Hey, here's what we got. Do you want to do it? And he's like, yeah, let's find some investors. So we went off finding investors. I hammered a few people and they didn't want to do it. And I told my partner, I was like, how much money you got? Because no one has $0 left. No one will give you $300 grand, and then that's their last $300 grand. He was like, well, I got $1 million. I was like, let's do this deal, man. Let's not bring in any other people. Same structure. Boom. All of a sudden that happened. And then I found another deal right down the street from the other one, and then that happened. So all of a sudden things started clicking for me, right? And then during that time, because I had time, we talked about it. I had cash flow coming in. I was like, oh, man, I got cash flow, man. I can breathe. My wife wasn't mad at me. Right? For getting us into this, because your wife will be mad at you or your husband will be mad at you if you give them a shitty deal. Right? It hammers everybody. So then all of a sudden I started doing these nicer oceanfront fixer-upper properties, doing my pretty house business. I stopped chasing the carrot of like, maybe I'll make more money with these beat up ones because everyone else was doing that. Man, I want to share that with you guys. If you want to do this is how I did. I can only share what I said. So if you're going to start doing the pretty house business or the pretty property, the pretty apartment building business, we just call it apartments, or the nice house business, like stick to something that's nice, that's valuable, that you know is always going to, one, be in demand and people are always going to have money for it. There's always money for beachfront properties. Always. There's always money for high-rise condo properties that are on like the 30th floor. Always. There's a group of people that are operating off of capital, not income. Capital is excess money over the top of the money that they make that's parked someplace that they need to invest to make more money on their money. Nothing wrong with being a capitalist, people. You got to contribute. I'm a capitalist as well. So, that said, though, that's how I got into those situations. Then it spiraled out to other multifamily deals that I started doing because of those other ones. Because, first things first, I looked at my own backyard and I started getting nice properties and I stopped trying to buy based on price, thinking I'm getting a better bang for my buck someplace else. But that was the catalyst. All of a sudden, I was like, dude, I got a lot of property now. A lot of cash flow coming in, and all of a sudden my subject to deals and my pretty house business and stuff is taking off. All of a sudden we start making a lot of money. And then what happened? Your boy VB got comfortable. Oh, man. I was too good for myself. I was winning. I went from bankruptcy to like $11 million worth of real estate like in a relatively short amount of time. I didn't need to do anything. I was like, you know what? I banged everybody. I'm going to start working out in my yard. And then... And then that grew Warhorse Strength Camp. Anybody who knows me that knows I'm the general from Warhorse Strength Camp. That's really how this happened. I was so depressed about who I was and lost my identity trying to build my identity back up. I created a new one. Woo, that's scary, right? But like I said, man, I like telling you guys this stuff because how many of you guys out there that ever listen to this haven't tethered yourself, your whole net worth to who you are, to your activities, and all of a sudden when that activity goes away, it makes you question yourself, whether it was physical, whether it was spiritual, whether it was mental, whether you're a dad and all of a sudden you divorce, whether you're a mom and all of a sudden you divorce, now you or a wife, you divorce, now all of a sudden you're not a wife no more, and everyone's like, what happened? And you embarrassed. You don't even want to tell people that. That's your identity, right? It's being a doctor, right? If you're not a doctor no more, you're not a doctor. You're just James or whatever your name is, and you're like, man, I don't like that. I like people call me Dr. James. I earned that. Dude, it's gone. I went through that. You laughing? It's true. That's why I don't call doctors by doctor. I always call them by their name, so that way they don't lose that. I'm trying to help you. So, anyways, that said, now we go into this next piece about where we moved into. So when I sold my apartment building, so I had investors. I had a lot of investors actually. I made a lot of people a lot of money, and they were trying to do what I was trying to do the other way. They were trying to do these beat up fixer uppers, and I hear the same thing from all my investors. Like, Vic, I made more money with you on your deals than I did of all the deals that I made. I'm still going through these deals. We lost deals. We lost this deal. We had headaches in this deal. How'd you do that? They all call. I'm like, dude, what'd you do? I'm like, dude, I don't do deals like that. So I just talked to a buddy of mine the other day. He may see this, and that's cool. They just lost a portfolio of development deals and his earnest money on some other deals. Why? Because it was too hard to raise the money, which is where we're headed. You can't just bring somebody to some dirt and go, look. Isn't that beautiful? They're going to be like, dude, what are you looking at? I don't see it. Even if you have these pictures and graphs and pie charts and renderings and all that shit, no one cares. You're not going to put your money in a rendering if it's dirt. So I was always telling my investors, like, dude, get stuff that cash flows. This was my crux of my world. Before I had a bunch of cash flow, I just had houses and I was selling them. But when the money dries up, that's the problem here. You're going to spend your money. If you got money right here and you live in this world, it don't matter where you're at. As you spend your money, if you have $100 in the account today, you take it out to pay gas today. Gas today is not going to fill your car up. Last year it did. That goes to show you your money is going down. So I was experiencing that. And we said, I got 200 grand. All of a sudden I was like, all right. And I'm one of those people. I get a big hunk of money. I pay my rent up for a year. I pay my cars up for a year. I don't pay them off. I pay everything up. And I was like, boom, let's bang. Let's go. Now I got breathing room. I take the noose off because I live on the noose, right? So once I took that noose off, though, and I didn't have like this residual money coming in, I was like, oh, man, that sucked. I got less money to play. What's happening? Then all of a sudden I'm back to zero grind. And I'm like, all right, you know what? When do I get off the hamster wheel? So I started being like, okay, I went after like how we raise the money. And I started putting together my own little system, which no one knows, right? Because not everyone, they can teach you, hey, go call a hard money lender and tell them you got a deal and tell them you're going to be at 70% LTV and you're going to bring in 15% if they could do 80%, 85% CLTV, all the jargon. But nobody knows how to actually get them to fund your deals or get a bank to fund your deal. Or like I said, with my investors, and they're not confused when they go to my stuff. But my buddy, I brought him to the property. I was like, look at the deal that we looked at. I couldn't get this deal, but this is what I'm putting money into. And they were like, his wife stopped halfway through, maybe like 40 steps away from the car, and she was like, I just want to say something. I could get behind this. I don't want to do the other stuff anymore, but I can get behind this deal. Like, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a person to come up and be absolutely sold before you say a word. So those pretty properties do that. There's a reason why you as a child were attracted to shiny stuff and all the little colors and things like that. It's an innate desire for us as human beings to like nicer things. That's why when you get money, you buy nicer things, right? So why buy something crappy if you can still make money off of something nice and get something nice and then go get something nicer? So what I had to learn initially was to stop messing around with people who actually wanted that. Just as of late, when we started Bell Capital as a fund, like I started Bell Capital because I wanted to give more people the opportunity, everyday investor that's not super wealthy. Like the super wealthy, man, they don't need my phone call. Matter of fact, they don't call us when there's a deal. They don't go, hey, Vic, we're buying a 500-unit apartment complex in downtown San Diego. We want to give you a call to see if you have any capital to play with. They don't do that. You can't even get in Goldman without $10 million, like to even open up one of their private their accounts where they manage your account for you. So when I started this, though, I knew that. So I was like, okay. So stop going after investors who want crappy deals. I don't do them. That's what they're used to. They've been massaged mentally to want those deals because they think that's going to be the best bang for their buck. But I know, based on my experience, like I said, I go from $10 to $57 million. I had to eat a lot of shit properties along the way, chasing the dollar to whereas it worked its way down and say, nah, I'm not doing those anymore. I'll say no in a heartbeat. Nah, I don't like it. Or, nah, I don't like your attitude. Because now you got people problem. I can deal with your house problem. I can deal with your financial problem. If you're a jackass, you don't sound like somebody I want to be in business with at any extent. I don't have to do that. I can just wait because there's no shortage of deals, right? I'll just wait for the next one. So that said, though, when you're raising money, you want that same attitude, right? So when I go to a deal for raising money, I'm walking people around the property. I'm like, hey, you know what? This is a property. Look at the location. The location's sick, man. This thing's never going to lose money. Look at all these palm trees. It's pretty. This is the swimming pool over here. The swimming pool costs more money than the down payment on the last property you bought or probably your home. Like when you start pointing that out, people are like, you know what, he's right. Like you ain't going to lose your money here. the water pumps at the swimming pool cost more than the money you made on the last investment you made. Like when you start pointing that out, people are like, yeah, you're right. Now here's the crux. If you're able to get into a 15, 20, 30, $50 million deal and my minimum investment, like with Bell Capital, is only $100,000, man, that's pennies if I'm going to let you in, right? So when you understand when you need to raise money from hard money lenders, investors, or JV partners like I did with my partner, it was an easy raise with my partner because one, I didn't make it complicated, and two, I showed him a deal that made sense. A lot of people are doing this wrong. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. I'm just saying that consider that there's a different way. So a lot of people are like, man, how'd you do all these deals? They think I did what they see in books and seminars and all that other stuff. There's not a lot of people who teach what I do, right? There's a lot of people who teach multifamily, but 8 out of 10 multifamily owners that you hear teaching today in 2022, and probably the most, where are they buying? The Sun Belt. That's where everybody's running. Used to be the Rust Belt, where they were going to Michigan and Flint and a bunch of other stuff in Ohio where I was going. And then they're like, oh, let's go to everybody's leaving New York and they're going down to the Carolinas and Georgia and blah, blah, blah. That's where they're going. Well, let me tell you, that is what everybody's doing. So at some point, you got to take a look and say, okay, what's happening here? All right. So multifamily people right now, that's what they're teaching. And they're telling you to do what? Go find properties that need to be fixed up. 80% occupied, raise the rents, lease it all up, and turn around and refinance your money. And that's how the games work. Well, that conversation has been happening so long it's now funny. And let me tell you, that type of product is now disappearing because money was so cheap over the last 10 years that a lot of that product got bought up. So what's your next play if that's your only play? You're going to have to buy pretty properties because they've already been fixed up. They've got to get rid of them. So if you don't know how to play this game, you can't negotiate. What are you going to say to me? If I'm like, hey, I got a property, I fixed it up. It's a 20-unit apartment building, man, in Orlando, and this blah, blah, blah. And I think it's worth $800 million. And then you go, cool. Why are you selling? Oh, you know what, man? We just want to get out of here. We're going to take our money and roll it into something else. What are you going to roll it into? Well, I'm going to roll it into this other project I got. And I got da-da-da. Like, okay, if you don't sell it, what are you going to do? I don't know. And then you start doing the research. You're like, dude, this dude just bought this thing, fix it up. He's going to hit with capital gains. If he can't roll it, he probably can't refinance it because rates went up. I looked at his documents. I know it's just fucked up. So at some point, you go, look, here's what I can do. How much cash do you need to get into the other deal? I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, how much cash do you need to get into the other deal? What if you just stayed in the deal? I got added to the LLC. I would say, hey, look, I'll just go raise money for my investors. We'll come in as a partner. I'll give you the money. You skate down the street to go do that. I control this entity. I'm eventually going to write you out. Once I'm on, I'm going to refinance it based on just taking your older debt out. And you're just going to have to stay on as an LP. You do that. Well, I'm not going to do any work. I'm down, though. I'll be a great partner. And they're like, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, if you sell it, great, you can sell it. But if you don't know that, because now I'm not negotiating on, oh, well, I got to get it. It's going to take $10,000 a door to bring the price down. So I'm going to take your price and I'm going to hack your shit in half because I got to go to heart. All that game is over. That game is over. And you cannot keep playing that game. So you ain't going to play much. Or you're going to wait for everybody to lose their ass and then you're going to be buying REO properties. And I'm going to tell you a secret about REO properties. I don't want REO properties. I don't want apartment buildings who's already lost money. You know why? Because I operate off statistics. And if I take a look at a statistic of a property that has a 10-year track record, and I look and I go, hey, over the last 10 years, man, this thing's been doing this the whole time, right? Which one would you rather be on this line? First, you know, I'd rather be a straight line than the one that goes up and down all over the place. I don't want the ups and downs in my investments because real estate and multifamily is an investment. I'd rather have a deal that I look at a 10-year trend and it's going like this. And that's what financials are. You can track trends based on 10-year financials, 20-year financials, 3-month financials. It doesn't matter. I know where the property's trending. I'm not so stupid to think that I'm a better manager than the guy that's had it for 5 years. But I know if I brought some money to the table, I can bake the line, throw it in the water, and he can say, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. And then I just find somebody that likes managing good properties. And now I'm in the deal. But you can't do that if your crux of operation, your negotiation strategies, you're not set up to deal with people who don't need your money. Or you can't negotiate based on renovation costs. Because that's usually where people come in the game. I know. I did it. I tried. And it sucked. Especially that I didn't want to do it. I'm like budgeting and saying, man, it's going to cost $60 grand to fix this property up. Knowing I don't want to fix up a property. And then in my mind, I'm just, man, I got to go get a partner. I have partners that I partner with. But man, that's a rough, you can't build a business off of that attitude. What did I say in the beginning? The essence of all business is to make money. So if you're automatically coming in on the negative or you don't know what you're doing or you're questioning, you're already going to be sucking. So the way that we go about raising money, partners, whether it's through banks and or regular investors or even joint venturing, is like we actually have to have a nice deal and show them the deal. Not a deal they like, a deal I like. Why is that important? Because I can't sell you on some shit I don't like. And you shouldn't sell people on stuff that you don't like. If I don't like ice cream, I can't sell you ice cream. And I shouldn't work in an ice cream parlor. I should get a job where they sell salads or whatever, right? So that's the truth. And people fail there, right? So I bring that up to say, like, I have a program. You can get it. You can not get it. But it's my real estate success system. I go through my whole Pretty House business program. I have an old one that's there, but I'm going to be training on it live, and you're going to get access to that. Today we touched bases on my whys, a little bit of the hows, but that one is not Victor. It's not the Victor show with me rambling the whole time. I'm actually a teacher and a trainer. I love doing that. I'd rather show you exactly what I'm doing because I like to show people stuff. So next, I go over my multifamily stuff. So there's 3 different ways to do the multifamily. So there's one, you do the value add stuff, which is how you make your first $1 million. So those other deals that we did, I only got them because I could structure $1 million worth of value in them. The first one, $1 million worth of value. Second one, $1 million worth of value. The next one, $1 million worth of value. I knew there was $1 million in each one of those things as it relates to equity is concerned. Later, when we go through this, you'll hear me talk about the 4 incomes you need to focus on, which, if you notice, the one of these top line people, they actually focus on all 4 incomes. The people on the bottom, they don't. Working income. These people right here, they typically focus on 2 of them. Working income and maybe some residual income or passive income. But if you want to create wealth, it's this one. You got to have all of them, right? Which is what I'm saying. I knew I could create $1 million worth of those deals. You can do that in 3 years. Every deal in your multifamily deal you get into that you're just trying to use my strategy of like, hey, what's the multifamily $1 million playbook thing? You need to time everything for 3 years. Why? Because your loans mature in 3 years. Right, Raph?
What did you say?
Your loan will mature in 3 years if you get that type of loan. So properties have to mature. It's like baking a cake, right? You put a cake in the oven, and all of a sudden you see looking at it because it says they check it every 15 minutes. 15 minutes over, you need to take it out, right? But what do you do when you take it out? You don't eat it. You let it set off to the side and cool off because you'll burn your mouth. So when you take when you get an apartment building and you know that you have this amount of equity built in because you have value there, then you reset your debt. You recapitalize your debt. You put permanent debt on there because now you're taking it off of that, and then you put it off to the side towards. Now it cools off. The cool off with the new debt is actually where your cash flow comes from. And you know, naturally you want to take out your down payment, right? So, but anyways, I go through that in depth. It's actually pretty interesting. So I'm teaching you from a real estate side. I had to learn this. I didn't understand. This was an actual strategy, the debt market. If I do a deal with a hard money lender or somebody like yourself, right, where you guys do both, you expect me to come back and get new debt on it. You expect me to go perm in 3 years. If I got interest only 3 years or 5 years, 7 years, whatever. But typically, if you're doing this, you're going to get 3 years at some point or 5, depending on where you're at. And then you're going to say, hey, 3 years, even if I get 5 years, I'm still going to look at it and say, well, I may come back in 3 years and I'm going to test the market. I'm going to go back, hey, what's it going to cost to get? What's the debt looking like? Hey, Vic, it's this. Okay, well, I got 2 years left on this other one. What's it going to cost me to do that? Well, you can probably get out, cost you 2 points. Got it. I'll pay it. I'll roll it in. I got so much money built in the back, I can afford to get out of this loan because it served its initial purpose, baking in the oven. Now I'm taking it out of the oven and I'm letting it cool off. Cool off period, it says I'm putting in new debt and I'm going to run it. That's how long it's going to take for me to cool off. And while that's happening, I'm kind of getting full off of the, picking at it, little smells here and there. That's the cash flow. And then later I'm going to bang it. I'm going to sell it, which was how we did our other deals. Every one of our deals we sold for $700,000 of profit over what we had in the deals which we had already taken out. So we made quite a bit more than we thought. So, but that's a strategy. If it wasn't repeatable, it wouldn't be a strategy. It'd be a tactic. I'm gonna hope that this is gonna happen. It was a tactic. It worked once, but it's not a strategy. It's not replicatable. I have a replicatable strategy. And I'll be honest with you, it's not new. Wealthy people, that's how they create wealth. They've been doing this forever. They buy a property, they hold on to it. It's really nice. They refinance it, pull their money out. That's why I showed you the other graph about debt, even though this is a different debt, but on the cool, when you focus on getting your income up, assets, and you use debt, your debt is actually bringing you up, bringing your income up, right? That's where the cash flow comes from your multifamily. Now, transactional, if you're going to do residential stuff, which we talked about, the pretty houses, which is what my other system, the pretty house playbook, Sharon helped me name it. I thought that was brilliant. I wouldn't have came up with that. But the pretty house playbook is exactly how I've been doing it for 20 years, the right way. because there's things I've added and taken away from there that I've learned over time that I was taught or I had different experiences. I was like, oh man, I had that experience I didn't know. And my mentors couldn't tell me that because that was a real world thing. So I share it with you because it's now something I experience all the time. The multifamily thing, and probably the most valuable part in my real estate success system is the money stuff. How to get funded. I find most investors think they know how to get money, and they do not. They're jackasses. Well, I got this deal. You should just give it to me because I'm me. And then they treat the loan officers, they treat their investors, they treat everybody like they're slaves. Dude, they're people. They got one job, lending you money. They're not in their office like, man, I told like 8 people no today. They want to do it, right? But the thing is that if you show up because you're a real estate guy, you don't actually know how to. That's why it's called get funded, not get funding. How to get funded. They already have the money. You have to know how to get your deal funded. You got to know what to say when you're there. There's actually 9 steps. I went over with, I don't know if you were there, but I went over the 9 steps that I do every time. It's a recipe, right? If you think your grandmother's cooking was good and she's like, boy, when you get older, this is how I've been cooking all that food, and you have a recipe, you can't get the 9 steps and then go, I'm going to leave 2 out because I don't like 2, and then expect it to taste like your grandma's food. It doesn't work like that. So, like, I learned from, like I said, from Ken Lee. He's a broker. He has so much real estate, it's not even funny. And he works with bankers all the time. He's a broker. So as a broker teaching me how to work with banks, how to get financing, how to get my deal funded, and him teaching me from a broker standpoint as an investor, this is how you do it in these type of markets, under these circumstances, with these type of properties. I put together my system from learning from all these seminar guys, and I learned the details, and then I learned how to play it in the real world, and I combine that into my real estate success system, which I've been doing for freaking 20 years. All right. So that said, if you want it, man, go get it. It's I don't even know what the link was. VictorBell.com/ I don't know what it is. That's sad. I'll put that in there later. But that's how new this is, man. I just know that I'm going to give you a success system, whether you do this with me or not. If you don't take away anything else from me, just take away this. You need more income. You need more cash flow. That's really it. The way I know how to do that is through real estate investing, buying pretty houses and buying pretty apartment buildings. Deals that you can get into that make you money on the way in and that make you money on the way out. And they ensure that you don't continue to lose money because there's always somebody willing to pay you for what you have. That is so important. So I hope this helps you guys. If you guys have any questions or anything, I'd love to go over that with you. But for now, just make wealth your duty. That was the whole reason for this today, is to figure out, how did I do that? How did Victor, the guy that started off with goose egg and then made money and then went to negative goose egg, keep climbing the ranks? And then I'm telling you guys, it's not easy, right? It's not. But if I can shave off that and I can help you and I can become a part of your team, which is, I mean, I think we talked about it. Transparently, my goal is to help you make a lot of money and then have you invest some of the money you make with me that I helped you make into my fund. Why? Because you need to invest money. You need to do that. If you can put $1 million into a place that gives you 5% a year, that's $50,000 a year. You're already doing better than the people here, right? So your goal really should be 10. You can get $10 million into an investment, that like properties that we're getting, that I'm going to be giving people access to, these nice things that are not garbage. You get $10 million, a deal like that, you're making 5% a year. That's what? $100,000? Whatever that is. Yeah, you make it double. You know what I'm saying? Like that. At some point, you're financially free, right? You'd probably be financially free with $50,000. At least you can cut your job in half. You don't have to work 18-hour, 10-hour days. You can be like, dude, I'm going part time. I'm not doing this shit. I got $50,000 coming in, whether I do anything or not. That's freedom. Freedom isn't the money. Freedom is what the assets allow you to do with the money you receive. It allows you to make more choices. That was huge for me when I figured that out. Money is actually all made up anyways, man. You just got to learn what you're doing with it. All right, so, man, I appreciate you. I thank you for spending time with me today in this video. I know it's a lot. I'm going to chop it up where I can, try to make it more digestible for you people who have very short attention spans. But I really care about it. And if you got value from this, please do me a favor, leave me a comment, and let me know what you liked about it. Or let me know what you didn't like about it. Don't be a hater and a hider at the same time. I hate people like that, man. I need all the attention I can get. All right, so I appreciate it. If you have any questions, go to VictorBell.com, or you can go to bell-capital.com. You can schedule a call with myself or Jamie. She's on my team. We can answer any questions you have about investing with us and hopefully get you started with your investments. But that's what I got for you today. I really appreciate your time. I don't take it lightly. And do me a huge favor. Like me, make wealth your duty. It is mine. All right, man. You guys have a great day today.